Alrighty, so we've got the board in, we've got it all tightened up. So this is the MS3, and then this is the MS3X upgrade. So right off the bat, you can see that the connectors are different, male and female. I did buy the harnesses for this, and I'll show you that really quickly. It looks basically the same. It's just like the last harness. It's all pre-labeled. It's got the connector on the end. I mean, pretty simple stuff, nothing crazy there. So why the upgrade, right? So firstly, with the MS3, we would be in wasted spark mode and batch fire, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It basically means that on our project, which is a 4-cylinder, that means that 2, 1, and 4 on both injectors and coils, 1 and 4 would be tied together, and 2 and 3 would be tied together. So not really that big of a deal. I've done a few batch to sequential upgrades. I haven't really noticed that much of a difference, but it is a nice thing. You know, no car to this day and age, in this day and age, comes sequential anymore, or does not come batch, anymore. But again, I haven't really noticed too much of a difference. But the biggest thing here is that in order to be sequential, you have to have a cam input. So that's what we're getting here, is we're getting a additional cam input. Now, one big thing that I would like to mention is that we do get a ton of outputs. So this will run up to an 8-cylinder, right? We're obviously not using that, but a thing to keep in mind is that if these aren't being used, you can repurpose this to other things. Having a actual flex fuel input makes things a little bit easier. We've got EGOT, which is a secondary wideband, an external map sensor, and a spare ADC, which is basically a 0 to 5 volt wideband, most notably 0 to 5 volt. But yeah, so these are nice, optional, nice, not currently using it, but again, nice. As you can see here, we've got a dedicated boost and VVT. So tachometer we're not really using because we're doing a parallel install on ours, and VVT may or may not be used. I say that because I don't know if the factory ECU is going to be mad about not having VVT controlled or not, but that is there. Same thing with idle. This car is drive-by-wire, which is the main reason why we're doing the parallel ECU setup. Megasquirt does not handle drive-by-wire for whatever reason, but so idle won't be used. Now over here we've got table switch, meaning that this is a switch that we can wire for 2 separate, like, high and low maps, if you will. Nitrous in, and then launch control in. So this is going to get wired to the clutch switch. It's a ground signal to activate launch / flatfoot shift. This is data log in. This is basically a switch that will, if you hit the button, it'll start data logging from an SD card if you have one installed. But the main one is actually this PT4 logic output. So this is a little different. This is actually a 0 to 5 volt input or output. So we're not using this yet, but what I plan to do in our particular setup is I'm going to data log the math using this. So we're going to look at what the math does in stock configuration, and so at that point it is an input. Then what I plan to do is I'm going to cut the wire from the math, and then this will be hardwired in, and then I will tell the Megasquirt to basically send over a dummy signal to the math. Because we'll be data logging it with this, I'll basically be able to load that up and then use it to output to the math, and then hopefully keep the car happy. We are going to be running an external IAT sensor, which is on the car factory, is built into the math, and we're going to be deleting that anyways. So if we can delete the math altogether while keeping the car happy, that's going to do us a lot of good. Now, in our particular situation, it's not that serious because we're a manual car. But if you were, for instance, like an automatic car, that would be something that is like, you would have to have it, because that's how the ECU knows how to shift, and its load pattern is all based on the math. Where I really see this shining besides automatic cars are cars like the Toyota Lexus cars, especially the IS300. The IS300 has to have the math because that's actually the way it, if you've ever looked at those cars, they have like a mile per gallon meter, and that's actually how they determine how your fuel economy is actually based off the map on those cars. So that's something that would be super useful if we can get that to work correctly. So that's really about it. We're gonna get this all hooked up, and what we're gonna do is the exact same thing that we did with just the MS3 install. We're gonna just hook up your basic ground and power. Then we're gonna hook up obviously we've got the crank signal figured out, and we're gonna actually employ the cam signal now. If we can get that all to work, that means that we can go ahead and start moving forward on our original plan, which is going to be basically unplugging the injectors from the stock harness and then putting these in its place. Now, I bought connectors off of Amazon for that. Let's see here. Here we go. So the Mazda actually uses the EV14 style injectors, so I went ahead and bought these connectors. I normally will pin them up myself, but there's a specific reason why I bought pigtails. So what I actually plan to do is I'm going to de-pin this, right? I'm going to leave the factory power wire in place, and I'm just going to remove the signal wire from the factory connector. Then this one will go in its place. And the reason why I'm doing that is really because I'm lazy. Why run new power wires if you don't have to, when you can just unpin a wire and then pin one in and then be good? And then that's going to make it extremely reversible. So that's basically the goal there. Now, this other bag here is, as you guessed it, coil connectors, and we're going to do the same thing. Strangely enough, my Mazda actually uses older Nissan style coils, so that's really cool. But basically the same thing. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to remove one pin, and that's going to be the signal pin. And I will leave the factory power and ground in its place. Take the one signal wire here, and that's going to be running from the Megasquirt to this wire. So the factory output wire for both the coils and the injectors are just going to be dangling there. I'll tape them up, I'll isolate them obviously, but they're not going to be doing anything. Now, if that plan does not work out, then I have actually purchased a fuse box. It's not here yet, but it's a universal fuse box, and I'll wire it up as normal, and it'll just plug in. We'll leave the factory harness dangling, and then we'll put my other fuse relayed box with these installed in it, and then hopefully that should be good to go. However, like I said, ideally I would like to just remove the signal wires from these spare connectors and then plug them in and then hijack the factory wiring, and hopefully that'll be good to go, at least for testing. So, but we've got a lot more things going on. So like I said before initially, right, the main thing is that yes, anybody can slap a turbo onto their car, but the most important thing is this: being able to tune the car. It does you zero good to have a turbo kit on a car where you can't put bigger injectors in and you can't make the car happy. So again, just like the whole point of this is actually just to get the car to run on the standalone ECU. Now, will I actually boost the Mazda? I kind of want to. I've had a lot of weird weird turbo cars. Most notably, I used to have a turbo Honda Element, which was a blast. And, you know, it wasn't very fast, but it was a sleeper. It would keep up with some cars where people thought they wouldn't. And, you know, why not? Have a turbo minivan? Sounds like it'd be a good time. Anyways, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at here as far as that goes. So I just wanted to cover the install on the MS3X upgrade, a little bit of the harness, and how we're doing our plans. So I'm always open to suggestions. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and the way I think is the easiest way of going about it, but you know, I'm always open to suggestions. Alrighty guys, so until next time, again, what we're going to be doing next time is we'll be hooking up this wiring for the MS3X, but we're only doing the ground and the crank, and hopefully we can get the trigger system to work like it's supposed to. And if we can get that to work like it's supposed to, then we'll start dealing with just the fueling. And then if we can get that to work, then we'll make the next step to our coil stuff. So